Dr. Vexai pressed his crystal hand against the cracked wall of his ship. The metal was cold and getting colder. Outside, space waited to kill them all. His crew lay dying around him. 12 of his people, the best scientists his world had ever produced, were slowly turning gray as the poison worked through their bodies. The Korthak weapon was designed to be cruel. It did not kill quickly. "Doctor," whispered Zin-Ara, his research partner. Her voice came out like broken glass. "The children on Harmonious Prime. Are they safe?" Vexai could not answer. He knew what the Korthak Empire did to peaceful worlds. They took everything. They killed everyone. They called it bringing order to the galaxy. The peaceful dawn had been studying plant life on a dead moon when the Korthak warships appeared. 20 massive vessels against one small research ship. The Korthak commander had not even bothered to demand surrender. He had simply fired. The bioweapon hit them before they could run. Now their ship drifted in space, life support failing, crew dying. The Korthak had left them to suffer. Vexai looked at the emergency control panel. Most of the lights were red. Now, only one system still worked perfectly, the long-range communications array. The Zephyrians had built it to last. He pulled up the emergency protocols. Hundreds of frequencies filled the screen. Most led to Federation worlds that were too far away or too weak to help. The Korthak Empire was too strong. No one fought them. And one. Then he saw it. At the bottom of the list, marked with warnings in 12 languages, a single frequency that led to a small blue planet in the outer rim. The warnings made his crystal form shake with fear. Deathworld, Class Turin. Approach forbidden. Inhabitants extremely dangerous. Quarantine absolute. Below that, in smaller text, emergency use only. Deathworld species capable of extreme violence. Use at your own risk. Earth, the forbidden planet. Every child in the galaxy knew the stories. A world so dangerous that its people had been locked away from civilized space. Creatures so violent and unpredictable that even the mighty Korthak Empire gave their system a wide berth. The stories said Earth's people were monsters. They fought wars that lasted for years. They built weapons that could destroy entire planets. They killed for pleasure and conquered for sport. The first contact mission had ended with the diplomatic team running for their lives. But the stories also said something else. The humans, as they called themselves, had one strange weakness. They protected things that could not protect themselves. It made no sense to any civilized species, but the reports were clear. Humans would risk everything to save complete strangers. Vexai heard another of his crew stop breathing. Soon he would be alone. His people were dying. His world's children faced slavery or death. The Korthak Empire would spread across the galaxy like a plague, destroying every peaceful civilization in their path. The humans were monsters, but they were monsters who protected the innocent. With shaking hands, Vexai activated the emergency frequency. The signal would take weeks to reach Earth. He would be dead long before any reply came. But maybe, just maybe, someone would hear. Someone would care. The transmission began with standard Federation emergency codes. Then Vexai added everything he knew. The location of Harmonious Prime, the size of the Korthak fleet, the number of innocent people who would die if no one came. "This is Dr. Vexai of the Zephyrian Science Council," he said into the transmitter. His voice was getting weaker. "Our people are peaceful. We have never harmed anyone. The Korthak Empire is destroying us because we cannot fight back. Our children are dying. Please, anyone who receives this, we need help." He paused, thinking of the warnings about Earth. "We know what you are. We know you are dangerous. We know why the galaxy fears you. But we also know you protect those who cannot protect themselves. We have nothing to offer you except our gratitude. Help us. Please." The transmission ended. The signal began its long journey across space, carrying a desperate plea to the most feared planet in the galaxy. Vexai closed his eyes and let the poison take him. His last thought was of the human stories, the tales of creatures so violent that they had been banished from civilized space. Warriors who fought impossible battles and somehow won. Maybe the stories were true. Maybe someone would come. Around him, the peaceful dawn grew silent as the last of its crew died. But the distress signal continued to broadcast over and over, carrying its message of desperation and hope toward a small blue world that most of the galaxy preferred to forget. On Earth, deep space monitoring stations began to detect an unusual signal from the direction of the galactic core. The frequency was old, coded in a format not used for 300 years. The message was in multiple languages, all pleading for help. At Terra Defense Command, alarm bells began to ring. For the first time in 3 centuries, someone had called Earth for help. Someone had voluntarily contacted the Forbidden World. The night shift commander stared at the translated message in disbelief. A peaceful species was being destroyed by an empire that believed might made right. Children were dying. Innocents were suffering. She reached for the emergency communication system that connected her to the highest levels of Earth's government. 300 years of quarantine were about to end. The Korthak Empire had made a terrible mistake. They had given a peaceful species no choice but to call the one place in the galaxy that specialized in impossible rescues and hopeless causes. They had forced someone to send an SOS to Earth. In the vast darkness of space, the signal from the peaceful dawn continued its journey. Behind it, the first Korthak ships began arriving at Harmonious Prime, ready to begin the systematic destruction of another peaceful world. They had no idea that their victims had already called for help. They had no idea that somewhere in the darkness, 3 human ships were preparing to leave Earth for the first time in 300 years. The Korthak thought they were about to conquer another weak species. Instead, they had just declared war on the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. The humans were coming, and they never showed mercy to those who hurt the innocent. Admiral Sarah Chen stared at the message on her screen. She had read it 12 times, but the words still made her angry. Children dying, families torn apart, an entire peaceful civilization being destroyed by bullies who thought strength gave them the right to kill. It was 3:47 in the morning, Terra Standard Time. Most of Luna Base was asleep. But Chen was wide awake now, her mind racing as she read the desperate plea from Dr. Vexhai, the Zephyrians. Chen remembered reading about them in the old contact files. Crystal beings who talked through music. They had never hurt anyone. They spent their time studying plants and writing songs about the beauty of life. Now they were being slaughtered. Chen touched her communication device. Get me the War Council. Emergency session. Authorization Omega Black. Within minutes, the most powerful military leaders on Earth were connecting to the secure channel. General Morrison from Mars Command, Admiral Reyes from the Jupiter Fleet, Colonel Zhang from Special Operations. We have a situation, Chen began. She shared the Zephyrian message. The room went silent as the translation played. 300 years, whispered General Morrison. 300 years since anyone has called us for help. Everyone knew the history. First contact with the galaxy had been a disaster. The Federation had sent diplomats to Earth, thinking humans were just another peaceful species. They had been wrong. The delegation had arrived during something called the Korthak Honor Games, a tournament where strong species fought weak ones for entertainment. The Federation diplomats had invited the humans to watch, thinking they would enjoy seeing superior warriors in action. Instead, the human escorts had walked onto the fighting field and systematically destroyed every Korthak champion. Not just defeated them, broken them. The humans fought like machines, but they smiled while they did it. The galaxy had been terrified. Here was a species that could defeat the mighty Korthak Empire's best warriors, and they seemed to enjoy violence. The Federation had politely asked Earth to remain in its own system, for everyone's safety. Humanity had agreed. They had seen the fear in alien eyes and decided the galaxy was not ready for them. Earth had closed its borders and focused on building the perfect society within the solar system. But now someone needed help. Someone innocent was dying. Admiral, said Colonel Zhang. "The Korthak Empire has 40,000 ships. They control a third of the galaxy. If we get involved..." "They hurt children," Chen replied quietly. "They kill peaceful people for fun. They think being strong gives them the right to destroy anyone weaker than them." She stood up, her expression hard as steel. "Recommendation, people. Do we answer the call?" The vote was unanimous. Chen activated the emergency protocols that had not been used for 3 centuries. Across the solar system, the most advanced ships humanity had ever built began preparing for war. The UES Retribution powered up first. Captain Marcus Torres had been waiting his entire career for this moment. His ship was equipped with probability drives that let it exist in multiple locations at the same time. The physics made no sense to anyone except human engineers. Commander Lisa Nakamura's ship, the UES Wrath, came online next. Its weapon systems were controlled by adaptive artificial intelligence that learned from every battle. The AIs had been studying alien combat doctrine for 3 centuries, waiting for a chance to test their theories. Major Elena Volkov's UES Fury completed the task force. Her ship was designed for close combat, ramming speed attacks and boarding actions that any sane species would consider suicide. Volkov's crew volunteered for missions that other humans thought were too dangerous. 3 ships, 300 crew members, against an empire of trillions. The galaxy had forgotten why they quarantined Earth. They were about to remember. "Task Force Cerberus," Chen announced over the fleet channel. "You are authorized to depart Earth space for the first time in 300 years. Mission parameters are simple. Save the innocent, eliminate the threat." She paused, thinking of the dying children on a distant world. "No mercy for those who prey on the defenseless. Show them what happens when someone calls Earth for help." Captain Torres acknowledged first. "Understood, Admiral. Time to remind the galaxy why they were afraid of us." The 3 ships engaged their probability drives and vanished from Earth space. They did not follow normal space lanes or use predictable jump points. Instead, they slipped between dimensions, traveling through spaces that existed only in human mathematics. Behind them, Earth's remaining fleets began mobilizing. If the Korthak Empire wanted a war, humanity would give them one they would never forget. On Luna Base, Admiral Chen stood at the observation deck, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, innocent people were dying while bullies celebrated their strength. That was about to change. The emergency protocols activated ancient agreements between Earth's governments. Resources that had been saved for 3 centuries began flowing toward military production. Shipyards that had built exploration vessels started building warships. Factories that made farming equipment switched to making weapons. Humanity had spent 300 years becoming better. They had eliminated poverty, ended disease, created art and music and literature that would have amazed their ancestors. They had built a paradise in their own solar system, but they had not forgotten how to fight. They had simply been waiting for someone worthy of their protection. The Zephyrians had given them that reason. Chen received reports as the task force traveled toward the crisis zone. The Korthak Empire had already begun attacking Harmonis Prime. Cities of crystal spires were being reduced to rubble. Millions of innocent beings were running for their lives. "Hurry!" she whispered to the stars. "Please, hurry!" The human ships pushed their drives beyond safe limits, racing across the galaxy toward a world they had never seen, to save people they had never met. It made no logical sense, but logic had never been humanity's strongest trait. Protection of the innocent was. In the depths of space, 3 small ships carried Earth's response to the first SOS they had received in 3 centuries. Behind them, the most feared planet in the galaxy prepared for the return of its children to galactic affairs. The Korthak Empire was about to learn why Deathworlders had been quarantined. They were about to discover what happened when someone called Earth for help. The humans were coming, and they never, ever showed mercy. Supreme Marshal Thakmor stood 4 meters tall and was afraid of nothing. His scaled hide had turned black from years of battle. His claws had torn apart enemies on 100 worlds. The Korthak Empire had made him their greatest warrior for good reason. He looked down at the crystal world below his flagship and smiled. Harmonious Prime was beautiful, all glowing spires and singing towers. The Zephyrians had built their cities like musical instruments. When the wind blew through them, they made sounds like heaven. Soon they would make sounds like hell. "Begin the harvest," Thakmor ordered. His ships moved into position around the planet. Each one carried 10,000 Korthak soldiers, bred for war and trained to show no mercy. The Zephyrians did not even try to fight back. They had no weapons, no military, no concept of violence. They simply hid in their crystal homes and sang sad songs as the Korthak ships began bombing their cities. Thakmor had conquered 47 worlds. This would be the easiest. His sensor officer made a sound of confusion. "Marshal, I'm detecting 3 small ships at the edge of the system." "Size?" Thakmor asked without interest. "Probably Federation observers, come to watch another peaceful species die. Tiny, sir, maybe 50 crew each, unknown design. They just appeared." Thakmor looked at the tactical display. 3 dots against his fleet of 200 ships. Whoever they were, they had terrible timing. "Hail them," he ordered. "Tell them to leave or be destroyed." The communication came through in perfect Korthak. The voice was calm, almost casual. "This is Captain Torres of the Terran vessel Retribution. You have exactly 60 seconds to stop all attacks against the Zephyrian population and leave this system immediately." Thakmor's mandibles clicked in amusement. Terran? He had never heard of them. And 60 seconds? 3 tiny ships giving ultimatums to the mighty Korthak Empire? "Open fire," he commanded. "Destroy them." Every ship in his fleet turned toward the 3 small vessels. Hundreds of energy beams and missile volleys erupted across space, enough firepower to vaporize a moon. When the light faded, the 3 ships were gone. "Target destroyed," reported his weapons officer. "No," whispered the sensor operator. They're behind us." Thakmor spun around. The 3 ships had appeared in the middle of his fleet formation. Impossible. Nothing could move that fast or disappear from sensors. "How?" he snarled. The answer came in the form of weapons fire unlike anything he had ever seen. The ship called. Wrath opened up with energy beams that adapted in real time. Each shot learned from the one before it. Korthak shields that blocked the first beam were useless against the second. Armor that stopped the second beam crumbled before the third. The Retribution seemed to exist in multiple places at once. Thakmor's ships fired at it, but their weapons hit empty space while return fire came from impossible angles. The human ship was fighting according to laws of physics that did not exist. But it was the third ship, the Fury, that made Thakmor feel something he had never experienced before: fear. The Fury did not fight at long range. Instead, it accelerated directly toward his flagship, ignoring the storm of weapons fire surrounding it. The ship's hull glowed red-hot from impacts, but it kept coming. "All batteries, concentrate fire," Thakmor roared. His flagship and 12 support vessels focused everything they had on the charging human ship. The Fury flew straight through the barrage as if it were not there. At the last second, it rolled aside and fired something into his ship's docking. "Bay, what was that?" Thakmor demanded. "Sir," his security officer said, voice shaking, "we have borders." Through the ship's internal cameras, Thakmor watched something impossible. Humans in powered armor were cutting through his soldiers like they were made of paper. But these were not normal fighters. They moved too fast, hit too hard, and they were laughing. The sounds coming through the communication system would haunt him forever. Human laughter mixed with Korthak screams. The invaders were not just winning, they were enjoying it. "Marshal," his navigation officer called out, "our jump drives are not working. We cannot retreat." Across the fleet, the same report came in. The humans had somehow jammed every escape route. The mighty Korthak armada was trapped. The battle became a slaughter. The human ships moved like living creatures, striking from impossible angles and vanishing before return fire could hit them. Every weapon the Korthak fired seemed to miss. Every human shot found its target. Thakmor watched in horror as his ships were torn apart one by one. The humans were not just defeating his fleet, they were playing with it, showing off, demonstrating abilities that should not exist. "Surrender!" he finally screamed into his communicator. "We surrender!" The human response was calm and terrifying. "Surrender is not available to those who attack innocent civilians. You wanted to show your strength against peaceful people. Now we will show you what real strength looks like." The Fury docked with his flagship again. This time Major Volkov herself came aboard. She was smaller than any Korthak warrior, but she moved like death itself. Her armor was painted with symbols Thakmor did not recognize, human battle honors from wars he had never heard of. She stood in front of him, and he realized he was looking at a predator. A creature evolved for killing, refined by centuries of warfare, perfected by a species that had turned violence into an art form. "Please," Thakmor whispered. "Mercy." Volkov tilted her head like a curious animal. "Did you show mercy to the Zephyrian children? Did you listen when they begged for their lives?" She stepped closer. "We studied your species for 300 years. We know what you do to peaceful worlds. We know about the experiments, the slavery, the games you play with innocent lives." Thakmor tried to speak, but terror had frozen his voice. "Here is what happens now," Volkov continued. "You will order all Korthak forces to withdraw from Zephyrian space immediately. You will release all prisoners and return all stolen resources. You will never threaten a peaceful species again." "And if we refuse?" Thakmor managed to ask. Volkov smiled. It was the most frightening thing he had ever seen. "Then we will visit every world in your empire. We will show each one exactly what happened here today, and we will keep doing it until the Korthak Empire learns that some lines should never be crossed." Around them, the battle continued. Korthak ships died in brilliant explosions while human vessels danced between the flames. In 47 minutes, the most powerful fleet in Korthak history was reduced to burning wreckage. The few ships that tried to escape found their drives mysteriously failing. The humans had been jamming them from the moment they arrived, cutting off every possible retreat. When it was over, only Thakmor's flagship remained intact. The human ships gathered around it like sharks circling wounded prey. "This is Captain Taurus," came the voice over the communication system. "Message for the Korthak Empire. Earth remembers who you are. We remember what you do to peaceful species. We remember why we were quarantined." The voice grew colder. "But you forgot why you were afraid of us. Today we reminded you. Tell your emperor the humans are no longer quarantined, and we do not show mercy to those who hurt the innocent." The 3 human ships vanished as suddenly as they had appeared, leaving Thakmor alone among the wreckage of his fleet. Around him floated the debris of 200 ships and 40,000 warriors. He reached for his communication system with shaking claws. The Korthak Empire needed to know what had happened here. They needed to understand what they had awakened. The Deathworlders had returned to galactic affairs, and they were everything the stories said they were. The message from Supreme Marshal Thakmor reached Emperor Korthag 3 days after the battle at Harmonious Prime. The Emperor read it twice, then had his communication officer check the transmission for errors. 40,000 dead. 200 ships destroyed, in less than an hour, by 3 small vessels from a forbidden world. "Impossible," Korthag growled. He was the largest Korthak who had ever lived, ruler of 1,000 worlds, master of the greatest empire in galactic history. Thakmor has lost his mind. Then the reports started coming in from across the empire. The supply convoy to Sector 7 had vanished without a trace. All 20 cargo ships and their escorts, gone. No distress signals, no wreckage, just empty space where a fleet should have been. Fortress Commander Vektar on the rim world of Kaltos sent an urgent message. His orbital defense platforms had gone offline simultaneously. When morning came, half of his officer corps was missing. Security footage showed nothing but empty corridors. The missing Korthak had simply disappeared. Admiral Grockmore reported from the 3rd Fleet that his ships were experiencing system failures. Navigation computers crashed without warning. Weapons refused to fire. Communication arrays broadcast strange music that sounded like crystal beings singing funeral songs. Emperor Korthtag called an emergency council. His greatest generals gathered in the war room beneath the imperial palace, their scales pale with fear. "What are we facing?" demanded General Thexnar. "What are these humans?" War Master Kelmoth, oldest of the Korthak military leaders, spoke with a voice like grinding stone. "I remember the stories from 300 years ago, when the Federation made first contact with Earth." He activated the holographic display. Ancient recordings played showing creatures that looked fragile and weak, bipedal beings with soft skin and no natural weapons. "They looked harmless," Kelmoth continued. "Peaceful explorers from a small world. The Federation thought they were just another species of scientists and artists." The recording changed. Now it showed the Korthak honor games where strong species proved their worth by defeating weak ones. The humans had been invited to watch. Instead, they had walked onto the fighting field. What followed was not battle, it was education. The Yaku human escorts moved with impossible speed and precision. They did not just defeat the Korthak champions. They destroyed them, broke their weapons, shattered their armor, left them crying for mercy on the arena floor. And the humans smiled while they did it. "The Federation was terrified," Kelmoth said quietly. "Here were beings who looked weak but fought like demons, who seemed peaceful but understood violence better than any warrior race. They asked Earth to quarantine itself, and the humans agreed." "Why?" asked Emperor Korthtag. "If they were so powerful, why did they hide?" "Because they knew what they were," Kelmoth replied. "Predators from a death world. Killers evolved through millions of years of warfare. They quarantined themselves to protect the galaxy from what they might become." The Emperor's communication device chimed with another urgent message. The fortress world of Grendix was under attack. Not by a fleet, by 3 ships that appeared from nowhere and struck like lightning. Commander Braktor's final transmission was filled with terror. "They fight like nothing I have ever seen. They anticipate our moves before we make them. Their weapons learn and adapt. Their ships exist in multiple locations at once. They are not normal beings, they are nightmares made real." The transmission ended in screams. More reports flooded in over the following days. The humans were not conquering Korthak territory. They were hunting it, methodically, precisely, without mercy. Supply lines that had operated for centuries suddenly collapsed. Fortress worlds that had never been threatened found their defenses disabled overnight. Entire fleets disappeared, leaving behind only recordings of impossible ship movements and the sound of human laughter. The patterns became clear to Korthtag's military analysts. The humans were not randomly attacking. They were targeting every Korthak force that had ever participated in the destruction of peaceful worlds. Every ship that had bombed civilian targets. Every commander who had ordered the death of innocents. It was not war, it was judgment. "How do we fight them?" Emperor Korthtag demanded. War Master Kelmoth spread his claws in a gesture of helplessness. "How do you fight creatures that move between dimensions? Whose weapons become smarter with every shot? Who treat impossible odds as personal challenges?" The reports kept coming. Captain Marcus Torres had somehow appeared inside the bridge of the dreadnought Fist of Korth, disabled the entire crew without killing them, and left them drifting in space with a message. "Tell your Emperor that Earth remembers every peaceful world you destroyed." Commander Lisa Nakamura's artificial intelligence constructs had infiltrated the Korthak military network. Instead of stealing information, they broadcast the sounds of Korthak defeats to every corner of the Empire. Proud warriors heard their champions crying for mercy. Mighty fleets learned how easily they could be destroyed. Major Elena Volkov had become something out of a nightmare. She appeared wherever Korthak forces felt safest, bringing her crew of laughing demons to teach them about real warfare. Her ship Fury had been sighted in 7 different systems simultaneously, each time leaving behind broken fleets and traumatized survivors. The psychological impact was devastating. Korthak warriors who had never known fear began deserting. Planets surrendered without fighting. Entire sectors begged for Federation protection. Emperor Korthtag found himself receiving daily reports of defeats that should have been impossible. His advisors whispered that perhaps it was time to consider surrender. The word had never been spoken in the imperial palace before. How does one surrender to demons? The emperor asked his council. How do we negotiate with creatures who appear from nowhere and strike without warning? Perhaps, suggested General Thexnar carefully, we should ask why they are doing this. The answer came in a transmission that bypassed every security system in the Empire. Captain Torres appeared on every screen in the Imperial Palace simultaneously, his image clear and unshakable. Emperor Korthtag, the human said calmly, we need to talk. The Emperor stared at the screen in shock. No one could access the Imperial communication system. It was protected by layers of encryption and physical barriers. You are wondering how we reached you, Torres continued. The answer is simple. We are humans. We specialize in doing impossible things. Torres leaned forward. Your empire has spent 1,000 years destroying peaceful civilizations. You have turned cruelty into an art form. You believe that strength gives you the right to hurt the innocent. The human's expression grew cold. You forgot that real strength comes from protecting those who cannot protect themselves. You forgot that there are some lines that should never be crossed. What do you want? Korthtag managed to ask. Complete withdrawal from all peaceful systems. Release of all prisoners. Reparations for the damage you have caused. And most importantly, your word that you will never again attack those who cannot fight back. And if we refuse? Torres smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. Then we will continue to remind you why Earth was quarantined. Every day, every hour, until your empire learns that some beings should never be threatened. The transmission ended, leaving Emperor Korthtag alone with his fear. Outside his palace, reports continued to arrive of impossible defeats and supernatural enemies. The humans had returned to galactic affairs, and they were teaching the universe a lesson about the price of calling Earth for help. Dr. Vexhai stood in the Great Hall of Nexus Station, the heart of galactic civilization. Around him, representatives from 47 different species watched with expressions of awe, terror, and confusion. 3 months had passed since he sent his desperate message to Earth. 3 months since the humans returned to galactic affairs. 3 months since the mighty Korthak Empire learned what real predators looked like. The crystal being's form resonated with barely controlled emotion as he spoke to the gathered leaders. The children of Harmonious Prime are safe. Our cities are being rebuilt. Our people sing again. President Cathis of the Federation Council, her blue skin pale with stress, gestured toward the tactical display. It showed the former Korthak Empire, now scattered into 1,000 fragments. Where once a unified threat had menaced the galaxy, only broken fleets and surrendering worlds remained. In 3 months, Cathis said quietly, 3 human ships accomplished what our combined fleets could not do in 3 centuries. They destroyed the greatest military power in galactic history. Ambassador Rel Kun from the Peaceful Alliance spoke next, his tentacles writhing with nervous energy. The reports we have received, they defy explanation. Human ships that exist in multiple places simultaneously. Weapons that become more intelligent with each shot fired. Warriors who treat death as merely an inconvenience. General Moxtar, representing the military coalition, activated a holographic recording. It showed the battle at Harmonious Prime from the perspective of a surviving Korthak vessel. 3 small ships dancing between hundreds of enemies, striking with precision that seemed almost casual. Look at this, Moxtar said, his voice filled with professional admiration and terror. Perfect tactical coordination, impossible physics, and listen, the audio played. Through the sounds of weapons fire and exploding ships, human voices could be heard. They were laughing. They enjoy it, whispered Ambassador Felnora from the academic consortium. They fight like artists creating masterpieces. Every battle is perfect. Every victory is absolute. Dr. Vexhai listened to the fear in their voices and felt a deep sadness. These beings saw only the violence. They missed the most important part of the human response. They came, he said simply, When no one else would help, when everyone said the Korthak were too strong, when peaceful beings faced extinction, they came. At the edge of Federation space, 3 ships waited. The UES Retribution, Wrath, and Fury maintained their position, just outside sensor range, close enough to be detected but far enough to avoid causing panic. Admiral Chen's terms had been delivered through official channels. Simple, non-negotiable, complete. The Korthak Empire would surrender all claims to peaceful systems. They would release every prisoner and return all stolen resources. They would pay reparations from their vast wealth. Most importantly, they would sign binding agreements never again to attack civilian populations. Any violation would result in the immediate return of humanity's special forces. The humans have not demanded territory, observed President Kathis. They have not claimed resources or established bases. They simply want the violence to stop. What assurance do we have, asked General Moxtar, that they will not turn these abilities against us? What prevents them from becoming the new Korthak Empire? The question hung in the air like a dark cloud. Every being in the room knew the answer could determine the future of galactic civilization. The communication system activated without warning. Captain Torres appeared on the main screen, his image crystal clear despite being transmitted across.
Light years of space. Honored representatives, the human said formally. We have been monitoring your discussions. You want to know what prevents us from becoming conquerors ourselves. Torres gestured, and the display changed.
It showed Earth, the forbidden blue world that had sent its children across the galaxy to save strangers. 300 years ago, you asked us to quarantine ourselves. We agreed because we understood what we were. We are predators from a death world. Violence comes naturally to us. War is something we understand better than peace. The human's expression grew serious, but we learned something during our isolation. We learned that real strength comes from protecting those who cannot protect themselves. We learned that the greatest victory is not conquest. It is preservation. You are afraid of us, Torres continued. That is wise. We are dangerous. But we are only dangerous to those who threaten the innocent. The Korthak Empire forced peaceful beings to call for help. That made them our enemies. He leaned forward. We did not seek this war. We did not ask to become the galaxy's enforcers. But when children are dying, when peaceful civilizations face extinction, when bullies mistake mercy for weakness, someone has to answer. Ambassador Felnora found her voice. What do you want from us? Nothing, Torres replied. We want nothing except the assurance that messages like Dr. Vexhi's will never need to be sent again. We want a galaxy where peaceful beings can study their plants and sing their songs without fear. President Caddis asked the question that everyone feared. And if we refuse? If we tell you to return to your quarantine? Torres smiled sadly. Then we will return to Earth. We will close our borders and focus on our own people. But remember, the next time someone calls for help, the next time innocent beings face extinction, you will handle it yourselves. The implications were clear. Without the human deterrent, other empires might rise. Other bullies might decide that strength gave them the right to destroy the weak. The galaxy would return to the cycle of predator and prey that had defined it for millennia. The quarantine signs around our system are being updated, Torres announced. They will now read, Deathworld inhabitants available for humanitarian intervention, terms non-negotiable. The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. Dr. Vexhi spoke into the quiet. The price of calling Earth has been paid, not by us, but by those who made the call necessary. The Korthak learned what happens when someone threatens the innocent. He turned his crystal form toward the display showing Earth. My people are composing new songs. We call them the Terran Harmonies. They tell the story of the day salvation came from the most unlikely source. What do they sing about? Asked President Kathis softly. Hope, Vexhi replied. They sing about a galaxy where the strong protect the weak instead of destroying them. Where calling for help brings heroes instead of conquerors. where Deathworld predators use their gifts to preserve life instead of ending it. The Council voted unanimously to accept the human terms. New protocols were established to protect peaceful species. The Federation's military was restructured to respond more quickly to threats against civilian populations. But everyone understood the real message. Earth was no longer quarantined. Humanity had returned to galactic civilization, not as conquerors but as guardians. In the depths of space, word spread to every corner of the galaxy. Aggressive empires quietly began reassessing their expansion plans. Peaceful worlds breathed easier knowing someone would answer if they called for help. The Zephyrians completed their first Terran harmony and broadcast it across the galaxy. The crystal music told of desperate times and impossible hope, of heroes who came from a forbidden world to save strangers they had never met. Admiral Chen received the transmission on Luna Base and smiled. The galaxy was learning the most important lesson humanity had ever taught. Sending an SOS to Earth came with a price. But it was never the innocent who paid it. The humans had returned. And they would never show mercy to those who hurt the defenseless. In the Outer Rim, 3 ships turned toward home, their mission complete. Behind them, they left a galaxy forever changed by the reminder that some beings should never be threatened. The Deathworlders were watching, and they were very, very good at their job.